everyone. Happy, what is it? Thursday? No, Tuesday. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Welcome to today's live stream. I don't do this a lot on this channel, but I thought this would be a cool opportunity just to chat a little bit. I don't know who's going to come and join me live, but in any case, there's a few things that have been on my heart and I've been thinking about a lot. So let's talk about politics and minimalism. As you all may know, I am an aspiring minimalist. I don't know if there's ever a point where you arrive anywhere, and it's not about arriving anywhere. It's really about the journey and about being more mindful and really thinking about things and cutting out things that are not really important and focusing on those things that truly make a difference, and not letting yourself get weighed down by things that maybe don't matter that much. So I don't want to talk about it. Let me know in the comments if you are here live. Let me know who you are and where you're from. It is awesome that you're here. I see someone being here. So okay, there's a lot going on, and there has been a lot going on this entire year. It's been a very unusual year, to say the least. Of course, first we got hit by coronavirus, and now there's COVID-19, which is a disease that is going around the planet, and several countries are having lockdowns. And in Europe, I'm in Germany. In Europe, we're starting the second lockdown, and in every country it plays out slightly differently. Lots of people losing jobs, schools closing partially and partially not. And there are a lot of opinions on whatever side you're on. Then there are labels we put on people, on things that happen. And I want to talk about this a little bit. And then, of course, just most recently, there was the US election, which at this point, I'm not sure where it stands. It's still kind of in limbo. And I don't know what's going to happen there. And I want to talk just a little bit about some of the thoughts I've been having. Let me preface it by saying that I'm someone who very much intentionally doesn't watch news or read the newspaper, and I haven't for many years. And I always thought, as a kid already, or as growing up, my dad was very much into politics. Every Sunday we watched this very boring show on television that was 1 hour, that was different people discussing political topics, and it was the most boring thing to me, and I didn't understand a word they were saying. And I always thought, who needs politics, really? What is that all about? And here's the thing. I want to propose a few questions today just to start you thinking. And I know you may be thinking about these things, but just some things that I've been thinking about. We read a lot of books. There are some books that have been published that they're novels, but they sort of try to predict what the world could look like in the future. And I have thoughts about what could the world look like in the future. And a lot of times these are depending on where you're coming from. So when we look at, for example, even Star Trek, that is actually something that is, it's a fictional thing, but it's based on science, and maybe it could be that way one day. You could either paint this picture of all the amazing things that could happen in the future. We could go to Mars. Like, there's a lot of movies about this, a lot of books about this. Or you could go into the direction of all the horrible things that could be happening if some of the developments continue on into the future. So as you can see, there are already two sides of it. You can either look at amazing things that might happen in the future based on what we are doing today and all the developments that we're seeing, or you can paint a really bleak, horrible picture. That is already one of my points, because it really is all about your attitude and your stance and what you make of the information. So here's the thing. Let's look at the US election. So right now, of course, the way it is right now is that Trump lost, or, officially in the media, everyone says Trump lost the election, Biden won, so Biden is the president-elect. Now there's all these lawsuits going on. The Trump side now is bringing up all these issues, and they were trying to prove in court that there was a lot of fraud in the election going on with the ballots. And so that is going to take some time now to sort out. It's a big mess right now because, then there's some people are very happy that Biden won, and some people are very unhappy. Here's my stance on all that. And I can't tell you whether I'm pro-Trump or pro-Biden, but here's the thing. Every opinion is legitimate. And I always want you to remember, because there are friendships that literally are just destroyed right now because they hate each other because of their stance. And I think that is not okay. That is the point at which we have to step back, get out of the emotion, and rationally think about some of these things. Here's the thing. Whether someone believes in what Republicans, the message that Republicans have, or whether someone believes in the message that Democrats have, whether someone believes communism is the only true way to really live and that it's good for everyone, whether someone lives democracy is the right thing, you can't really per se say that this is the right way and this is the wrong way. It's much more important to really look at it and say, okay, everyone has their legitimate reason and background. They're coming from somewhere. Let's say someone was raised on the edges of society in poverty, really difficult time, crime going on, they will have a whole different perspective on life than someone who was raised in a privileged situation, with affluent parents maybe. And also someone who may be self-employed, working, and maybe someone who makes $500,000 a year in revenue will have a different stance from someone who earns minimum wage, struggling to go get by paycheck to paycheck. Everyone, and that is only natural, everyone brings their own interests to the table. So you always have to remember, when you talk to someone, they're not stupid because they believe this or that. I have arguments. I had a friend come over last weekend, and we had some not heated discussions. We just had some discussions, and we just posed some questions. He's a medical doctor. He just published a book, and I have published a book. I'm more of an artist. I come more from that other side, and he's very logic and very much into medical studies, and I read lots of medical studies. So we got into a discussion about coronavirus and what governments are doing right now. Is it the right thing? And what would be the alternatives if they didn't do this? What should they do? What would you propose? And interesting questions. But what I see is that it is just so sad if we let anyone split us up in society and divide us. And I think that is the most dangerous thing right now, is that division. And so I have discussions with some of my friends and with Andreas, my partner. We have discussions sometimes because I have very strong opinions and he has very strong opinions. And, let's talk about some issue, for example, immigration. So in Germany right now, we have this situation that we have been taking in a lot of refugees. So that has created some problems, of course, because, it's already a very crowded country, not a lot of space for a lot of people. And so, housing, and then there's culture. So my opinion is, I respect every human being because every human being deserves a basic level of respect just because they're a fellow human being. As a matter of fact, I believe that every creature, everything that is alive, because I think it was created by God and it has a place in this whole on this planet, in this, like, it has its place. I think every creature deserves an initial, very basic, just a respect that needs to be paid. But then I also believe that in order to live together, you do need to play by some rules. Now, of course, with the refugees and with, in the US, the immigration, I have experienced it firsthand because I immigrated a couple times to the US. I was married to an American for 12 years. We're not anymore. We got divorced a long time ago, but I went through the system, and when you go through a system like that, you really feel what they think of you, what the system thinks of you. It does not feel good to be put in the place of, like, you have no right. You have to prove that you have a right. So first we're going to assume you don't have a right to ask to come in here, but you have to prove otherwise. Does not feel good. On the other hand, when I did immigrate, I absolutely played by the rules and I abide by all the laws. And I think that what the United States does is I like some of the things that go on in contrast to what Germany does, because Germany has this no questions asked attitude. We're just gonna first let everyone come, and then we're going to start asking some questions, which, of course, once someone has entered the country and starts living here, it becomes a lot more difficult because they have gotten settled. And then it's almost wrong to then, after 2 years, because now the court case is open, now we're going to turn them back. And then you can't really turn anyone back. So I strongly believe that anyone should, if you enter a country that in the beginning you're a guest, when I come to someone's house as a guest, I try to behave in a way that makes my host feel at ease, right? If I come to someone's house and I start, I don't know, breaking something, or I don't know, just messing up the kitchen and just putting dirt everywhere, not, like not flushing the toilet, that is not okay. And so I think that anyone who is a guest in any country should also play by the rules. And that's one point where I wish Germany would be a little bit stricter, that when someone becomes a criminal doing horrible things, that there is this, no, then you can't be here. So, but there's a lot of attitudes. But let me just talk about the media a little bit. This has been on my heart. Here's what I think. How should you learn about what's going on in the world? How should you inform yourself? Of course, there are the media, TV channels, newspapers. You always have to know that when you don't listen to the direct source, everything that's printed or in video, in any shape, way, or form, it is an opinion. Because human beings decided, some person decided, this is what we're going to show, this is what we're not going to show, and they do interpret. Always be clear of the fact that it doesn't matter if someone says they're neutral. I'm not neutral because I have an opinion. I'm a human being. I have interests. So, of course, everything I hear, I'm going to interpret to where it fits my own narrative. And so anything that anyone puts out on video and on YouTube, you can see this very clearly, that there you will find people right now at this time putting videos out that have tons of proof that there is fraud in the US election. There is tons of proof. At the same time, you will find lots of people putting out videos or even articles on the internet that prove that Biden is the lawful, he is the winner of the election, no questions asked. There's proof on both sides. So how can that be? Well, it's because you can always look at it from two sides. At the same time about coronavirus, you will find people who have absolute proof, scientific proof, that the coronavirus is more dangerous than most other diseases that we have faced in the past few decades. And this is more serious than anything else right now when it comes to health. And it proves that unless we take the measures that are really extreme and really social distance, quarantine everyone, make sure no one has contact with everyone, and shutting down a lot of the country, that this is the only way to prevent disaster. And there is scientific proof for that. There's also scientific proof that coronavirus is a lot less dangerous than we initially thought. And that the measures, the governments, whatever they imposed, the lockdowns are, number one, ineffective and even causing more harm than they do good. There is actual proof, scientific proof. There's also scientific proof that face masks will reduce infection greatly. There are also studies that will prove scientifically that face masks make it worse and that it increases the chances of an infection. Isn't that paradox? You can go and read all the studies, scientific studies, and you will find arguments for either side. So that's why science maybe sometimes isn't that much science-y. Because you have to take into consideration life. This is my thing. Life is far too complex. We look at one thing. We look at its RAS, reticular activating system. We always look for the information that will comply with our own personal narrative. So when you turn on television, you will, this is really funny. Just in the past few days with the US election going on, I have been switching back and forth a little bit between different channels. And it is so interesting how they give you out the information. And again, remember I said, don't listen to those sources that already interpret whatever is going on. Everything is an interpretation. And unless you were there personally and you have seen everything, it's all an interpretation. Even when you see it with your own two eyes, it's still an interpretation, because your RAS, your reticular activating system in your brain that filters information, decides this is relevant, this is not relevant. This goes with my narrative, so it strengthens that narrative. It is proof. And everything else is disregarded. So it's so human. So here's about the TV channels. Oh my goodness, this is so interesting, and it's actually hilarious, and it's so human. And what gets me is that there are so many people out there who think, I know the truth, and this is the truth. I'll show you proof. At the same time, there's someone telling you the opposite. I said, well, this is proof, and I know it's the truth because here I have proof. So who's right? And when you turn on, for example, about the coverage about the US election. Hi, Sarak. The coverage about the election, you can find a channel that will comply with your personal narrative. It just depends on what you turn on. So Fox, I actually wrote it down. News Now from Fox. If you look it up on YouTube, News Now from Fox. That is one, what is it, like a television, like one channel that is very pro-Trump. And they will have everyone on who says there is proof that the election was fraudulent, and here's the proof. And they will go on and on about it. Then there is NBC and MSNBC. They have been bashing Trump for months. ever since he's been president, they have been bashing him, which I think that is not okay. It's like that is so not neutral, right? So, but there's also that other side, and they will find all the proof, and they will tell you all the proof to prove that narrative of the other side is all wrong. This is ridiculous. So either side says the other side is ridiculous, and both sides always have proof. Also, what is it? Sky Australia. You turn on Sky Australia. Yes, absolutely. Sky Australia is also, they have been talking about Trump is it, and Trump needs to be it, and now they say that he didn't win the election. How? Since when can CNN call the election? Now CNN will, of course, go and say these people are all, they're so biased, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories. These are all conspiracy theories. So, like, who's right? Right? Now, the German news is also very much on the side of the Democrats. And the narrative, when you turn on German news, like mainstream media, you can tell that their interest is because the German government and Europe, they would like to come back to these treatises, to those, to actually talk to the American party and the American president, and to get back into all these agreements which Trump has canceled. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that there is a clear reflection of interest, the country's interest, the government's interest in how they will actually put out the media. So Germany really would like the Democrats because it is in Europe's interest. At the same time, they have actually learned a lot to not be so dependent on the US anymore, which I think that could be a good thing. But it just shows you that the media are always biased, and every single person is always biased. As long as you have an opinion, or you're a human being, you have your past, you have your agenda, and that is, no one can put behind their agenda completely. And so anything anyone ever says always has an agenda, and it always reflects their own interests and their own beliefs. And who am I to say, and who are you to say that someone's agenda or someone's belief is wrong? So you're not allowed. How can I tell someone you're not allowed to believe that we should let all the immigrants come in? How can I tell someone to say, well, you're not allowed to think that Corona is harmless? Who am I to tell anyone? And based on this video, I have my opinions about all of these topics, and I do stand on some side, but all I can say is it's really all about, I admit that whatever side I stand on, it is because of my personal agenda. It's because of my history, my past, how I've come to the point that I'm now, my interests. I'm self-employed, so of course I would stand on the side of whatever helps me being self-employed and make, just bring as much of my money with me as I can and not have to give away too much of my money. That is my personal agenda, and I think everyone's personal agenda is legit. But the difficulty in the US election right now, I think, is this is what makes me really sad. It brings about huge division, and both sides, it's almost like they hate each other, and that's where I think it should end. It's not okay for it to get to the point where you hate each other and you say the other people are idiots. They're not idiots. They just have a different personal agenda, and it's legitimate. I think it's very dangerous when the people get so divided. And right now in the US, because it was a pretty close race between Trump and Biden, I think it does, no matter who wins, I think it's important to always remember that whoever is going to be president, that there's almost 50% of the population. So of course, the one who won has a little bit about above 50%, and the other person, whoever's going to be Trump or Biden, the loser is going to have a little bit less than 50%, but both are quite close to 50%. So you can't disregard a large percentage of the population and just say, oh, they're just lunatics. They're stupid. That's wrong what they want. Don't disregard them. Just what I always say is like, anything that you see play out in the world, you can apply it to your family. And unless you know how to do it right in your family, you can't really, how are you going to tell politicians to do it right? Have you mastered that within your family? Have you mastered? Are you really truly democratic in your family? Do you really give the other person the respect? Do you pay respect and say, okay, I truly listen to you. I understand your agenda. And I also want to share my agenda. And I understand that everyone has this amount of selfishness. If you're a healthy human being, you always have this amount of selfishness that is innate, because otherwise we wouldn't survive. Sarah says the Chinese president has yet to recognize Biden as a valid victor. Well, again, like I said, whether the election was valid or not, there's proof on both sides. And whether Biden or Trump would be better for the country, I'm not going to make a call on any of that, because who am I, right? And also another thought I wanted to share is that we never know the whole picture. Doesn't matter how much you've researched. You never know the whole picture. Even when you just talk to one single person, you don't know the whole picture. And I urge you strongly to not listen to the media where someone already interpreted for you. I always try to listen to the actual source. So, for example, I try to not listen to someone who says, Trump said, and then they show this excerpt, or Biden said, and then they show this excerpt. I try to make up my opinion by actually watching the person and letting my own intuition help me with my decision about, is this a trustworthy person or is it BS what they're talking about? Do I think they're genuinely speaking, or do I think it's BS? And that is just my personal feeling and my personal interpretation again. But again, I'm trying to go to the direct source. Or this specific epidemiologist. I'm not going to listen to some media telling me, well, this epidemiologist said blank, blank, blank. Or this scientist said blank, blank, blank. Because like, okay, let me listen or watch the entirety of what they actually said. Let me actually listen to them and actually read, what is the tone? What feeling does that give me? And I think that is a much better way to determine whether you think someone's trustworthy or full of BS. Because you can just, the humanness, I think we're empathic creatures. And so we have a good feeling for calling out BS if someone is fake or someone's for real. But again, it's just your personal opinion. It really doesn't mean that this is the truth and overarching truth for everyone on the planet. So let me see. Conspiracy theories. I have a problem with that word even, because a lot of, in the past few months, ever since coronavirus, a lot of people have talked about others being conspiracy theorists. And I think just because someone doesn't believe, or someone thinks that some things that are being said that are taken for granted by the majority of people might not be true. There might be someone who has an agenda. I don't actually like that term's conspiracy theory, because a theory, I mean, really, everything's a theory. Unless you were personally there and you know everything, unless you're God, basically. Unless you're God, everything you believe is a theory. Like even physics is a theory, right? Physics is a theory. So astrophysics, very much a theory. Everything's a theory. And so I don't like discarding others, and I don't like to scrutinize because someone said something that might suggest, well, maybe something isn't right. I think it's good to be critical. I also think it's dangerous to fall down into the trap of just weaving all these ideas and continuing on. Let me give an example. When I was 20 years old, I went to the US with my then fiance. And then we decided to actually go ahead and get married. My dad was a very, 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 very strict person, very strict dad. And so he was back in Germany. My family wasn't back in Germany. And I was in the States with my back then fiance. He was American. And my dad was already so difficult. So we decided to get married. And I knew that my dad wouldn't be happy about it because I was quite young. And so I procrastinated telling my dad that we had plans to get married. Then my dad calls my aunt who was in the States, and I had talked to her before, and I had told her that we decided to get married. Then they talk, and my dad is like, really? Really? They're planning to get married? How come I don't know about it? And then they're starting to weave this story in their heads. Oh, on television there was something about the Ku Klux Klan in Waco, Texas. She's in Texas. I mean, I was far away from Waco. I was in Southeast Texas, like in the Houston area. That is so far away. She must. And the guy, her fiance, he's religious. He's religious. She's in Texas. The Ku Klux Klan is like really taking over everything right now. And there were a few stories in the media back then. And suddenly, this is what the fact was for everyone. I had been taken captive by the Ku Klux Klan, some cult. They took away my passport. They didn't allow me to return home to Germany, and they forced me to marry the guy. So that was the narrative. The truth is, I was just scared of my dad and my, then to become husband. Everything was okay. I was with his family. We went to church on Sundays. It was just a normal church. So can you see how when you start weaving and you just continue on, your mind runs wild. You can come up with wild stories. Not to say that there have been some wild stories in history. I mean, do you remember the guy who said the earth is not a disc? What a conspiracy theorist. That is just craziness. I mean, who would think of that? That is insane. But do you see? There are actually things happening that are unbelievable. So we have to find that balance between being critical, but being open to change our mind to, and always knowing it's just a narrative. And we look for things that prove our personal narrative. Watch yourself. You will always look for things that prove that you're right. And you will find all the things that prove that you're right. I find things all the time that prove that I'm right. It is just, every human being is biased and has an opinion. Otherwise, you would not be a human being. Okay? So that's pretty much what I had to say. One more thing, one more question, just an idea. In order to kind of see where is an agenda, where could there possibly be an agenda? Look at where money comes from. Where does the money flow? When someone receives a lot of money from somewhere, from a source, probably they have a pretty good relationship. Or someone feels like they have to owe something to that institution or the person that gives the money, that supports. There must be an agenda, right? So my customers who pay me, my clients, I try to make, sometimes I may think, oh, I can't believe that. oh, what are they doing? But I have to always make sure that I'm delivering what I deliver to everyone because they paid me money for it. Your financial minimalist advice video really helped me. Thank you. Oh, awesome. I'm sorry for going off topic. Just had to thank you in person. Well, thank you so much, Zarek. I appreciate it. I'm very passionate about a lot of these things that I talk about, and my life was a true mess a few years ago, and I used to get in. I was always someone who was easygoing. I have developed much stronger opinions in the past few years, and I don't apologize anymore for what I believe in. But at the same time, I know this is only my perspective, and I respect very much other people's perspective. And I try to never push something on someone, but I try to be a good example. That's my agenda. I try to be a good example. I try to make others think. And maybe, if they think that something that I shared that worked for me, they want to try it out, then it makes me really happy if that thing also works out for them. So even with a financial minimalism, I used to be a financial mess. I was never in deep, deep, deep debt, but I was pretty messed up a few years ago after my daughter was born. I had all these bills that I couldn't pay anymore, and I almost lost my house. It wasn't like huge, gigantic sums of money. It wasn't like hundreds of thousands. It was really just several thousands, but that was enough to really make me realize I need to get things in order. And it's really all about being organized and putting things in order. So that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Well, thank you for hanging out, Zarek. I think that most of my audience, they're still asleep because most of them are in the USA. And so I hope everyone who's watching after I went live that you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments. What are your thoughts? What media do you listen to or watch? Do you listen or watch at all? Very intentionally, yes or no? I'm someone who generally intentionally stays out of a lot. But when it comes to, I think it is also important to stay informed to a certain extent. But once, if it starts interfering with my well-being, then I have to detox. I have to do a media detox and like a YouTube detox. It is much more, I think it's better to create than to consume too much. You can only consume too much. When you consume too much, you're not yourself anymore. You need to start creating. And me, I go for walks every day and I try to not have any input. I go into, Reykjavik. That's really cool. How is the situation in Iceland with Corona? I know it's not very densely populated, so probably it could be potentially, it's probably not as bad as it is in Europe because Europe is so densely populated. But how is it in Iceland? It's just a little bit crazy. I hope that Christmas is gonna be to where we can actually be with a family. Because right now my mom, she lives 2.5 hours away from us, and I would hate to not see her because we don't see her a lot at all. And she's 75 years old, and I don't know how long we're gonna have her. I don't want to miss Christmas with her. So yeah, just how is the situation in Iceland with coronavirus? And Germany has had a lockdown for 1 week, but the numbers are skyrocketing. Not interpreting that information, I'm just saying how it is. You're coping. So yeah, whatever that means, right? Thank you for hanging out. I'm going to wrap it up. I have to make some lunch, and there will be another video coming this Thursday, and it's going to be, you want to know what it is? Let me see. I can't ever remember what it is. It's going to be about, oh yeah, it's going to be bathroom cleaning motivation. And next week, I actually have a video about lavender essential oil and about some amazing uses. And next Thursday, it's going to be about verbal minimalism, which I think is really important. Sometimes to be verbally more minimal, which that is my cue right now to shut up and go about my day. Yes, I miss traveling too. So have a great day. Thank you for hanging out, and I hope to see you soon. Stay connected and subscribe if you have not. Bye for now.